the game tomorrow. But let's go ahead and jump into your Arkansas update presented by Davis & Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. And I guess that, there hasn't really been any major new moves. We know about Darren Wilson leaving yesterday, but today, a little bit of a surprise, I guess, because Arkansas defensive lineman Anton Juncaj officially announced that he is putting his name into the NFL draft. So not going to the transfer portal, but he put out a long graphic. I won't read all of it because it's normally just a lot of nonsense of what stuff they need to be said. But since you just said that, with Adam excited to be clearing for the 2025 NFL draft, I'm ready for the next chapter of this journey and can't wait to see what the future holds. Thank you to everyone who's been a part of this experience. So, yeah, somebody that Sam Pittman talked about, hey, I hope we get him back next year, where you had the new ruling where you could maybe get him back next year because of the JUCO stuff. None of that matters because he's going to the NFL draft.
I'm not sure that I agree with that decision, but it's not my life. I thought that this was going to be a no-brainer probably for him to come back. I don't know what the thought process is there behind the NFL thing, unless, like he walked in there at the end of the year and said, hey, I can get this extra year. I want this much more in NIL. And they said, brother, you didn't get a sack until we played in the Liberty Bowl. Sorry. And then maybe he was just like, oh, whatever, I'll go do my thing. Or maybe he's just not a college guy. I don't know. But that seemed like kind of a no-brainer to me. And even though he didn't produce much this year, I kind of view this as a hit to the defensive line, because that's the one area where they've brought in some bodies, but I haven't been overly impressed with the work that they've done in replacing their losses. I still have felt like they need to do more. And, it just, seems like a reliable guy that can play a lot of snaps for you that you're not going to have.
Yeah. This morning when I saw this news, I was trying to think of like what went into the decision. And I thought maybe he just really hates school and like doesn't like doing schoolwork and was just like, I don't want to come back and take a few classes. Like, I really just want to move on with my life and, go sell insurance somewhere or something. But like, if someone in his camp like told him like, hey, you've got a real chance, like we're gonna be calling NFL teams, you're gonna get drafted, like maybe he will. I really don't know, but I don't know where that idea came from. And frankly, last year, if he had declared for the draft, he probably had a better chance. I thought that this year was not the type of year that would necessarily equate to him getting his name called. And it's also different. Like in basketball, like if you declare for the NBA draft and you don't get drafted, you can still make a lot of money. Hell, really, really good money not playing in the NBA, playing in Europe, playing wherever. Football, it doesn't really work that way. Like I know there's a few other leagues that have popped up, but if you don't get drafted, I know you can make a roster other ways, but it really is pretty hard to make real money. And I who knows what he would have made in NIL, but I do agree, Curtis, that I think this is kind of like not a massive loss. I mean, he wasn't a guy that produced a ton, but we kind of felt, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the show, that if you could get him to come back, and Sam Pittman said, hey, we really hope we can, you maybe could get a healthier version of him. It's a guy that isn't going to cost you a ton of money, could give you 2, 3, 4 sacks, and it would just be a nice piece to have in a D line where you're not going to have a bunch of stars. You just kind of need guys that can log snaps, be in a 6-7 man rotation and be solid. It now just gives Arkansas another extra body that they have to go out and get in the portal on the D line. And so, it's not like a massive deal, but I was a little surprised by the decision. And, it's hard for me not to feel like a little bummed out from the Arkansas perspective.
Yeah, I would have been less surprised if he just entered into the portal and tried to go somewhere else, because, I don't know if this was just a bane of the existence of, hey, a great, like the Desmond James thing, great bowl performance. Therefore, you're getting talked about. People are mentioning you, because I could have totally seen it where other college teams saw him have, 4 tackles, a sack for safety and all that in the bowl game. Be like, man, we could use this kid. Let's get him in the portal and all that. But to go to the NFL draft, that was my immediate assumption, and it's a reckless assumption. But maybe it's just he's not big on going to school, man. Big on going to college and wants to move on, which is fine. I get it, but I think that this is more of just a major blow for continuity when it comes to the defensive line. You're already pretty gutted. I mean, you're losing Landon Jackson. You lost Nico Davier. You get Cam Ball back, and that's great, and some other guys in pieces. But I mean, now your work is even more so cut out for you if you're Deke Adams in the Razorback defense, because we know how important the D line is. I mean, right now you got Cam Ball and not much else going on. So you got to be able to get more. This would have been a nice little again, continuity wise, good feeling of like, hey, is he going to be Landon Jackson 2.0? Probably not, but we can at least count on him to hopefully improve after a season and in the offseason and then be able to provide some sort of pressure. Now you don't even have that. It's kind of disappointing.
Well, now it's like you pretty much pencil Quincy Rhodes in as a guaranteed starter, which, okay, we'll see. Hopefully it pops. I think it needs to pop more than Nico did this year, for that to be a really solid thing for you there. And then you're going to need both the Ken Talley from Michigan State, and then for the life of me, I can't remember the kid from Florida's name, but they both have to be like very solid contributors for you. One of them has to be an emerging starter, and they've both got to be guys who can really fit in the rotation for you and help out. Weirdly enough, like both of those guys came from big schools. I'm more excited about the D tackle from Abilene Christian that they're bringing in, Oak or whatever his name is. But he had some good numbers. Like he kind of looks like a pretty decent piece there on the interior. But yeah, coming off the edge, I don't know who all is visiting here in the next couple of days, like how many of those guys are proven edge rushers. But if they're not, I'm kind of wondering what the hell's going on. I feel like it's a big area of need for this team.
Yeah, we had a commenter not too long ago, like in our YouTube comments, that was like, what was so special about what Landon Jackson did? Like, why can't we replace that? Like, what did he do that was so great? And, I'm not even going to really push back too much because, look, I think Landon Jackson had a solid year. He was one of the higher graded defensive ends in the country in the SEC, and he had, I believe, 6.5 sacks back-to-back years. Those numbers might not blow you away, but I've said it before that Arkansas is replacing him with a collection of guys who have less career combined sacks than he had in one season.
Right.
Hell, in one game against Alabama a couple years ago, he had damn near as many sacks as these guys have in their lives combined. So it's not that Landon Jackson is irreplaceable. And maybe Quincy Rhodes really will take that next step, and he'll give you 6.5 sacks. Maybe he does that. And if he does that, cool. Well, that would be huge. That'd be a huge development for Arkansas. But like you said, Curtis, you still need another starter on the other end. You still need backups behind that. You still need a rotation of guys. And so it's not that Landon Jackson's irreplaceable, but Arkansas just didn't really replace him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, also, too, people fail to understand, especially when it comes to this specific stat of getting to the quarterback, providing pressure, sacks, all of that. You see other guys, and we'll take recent memory in Arkansas. Think about guys who got to the quarterback, had a lot of sacks. Trey Flowers, Jake Beckett, Drew Sanders, guys like that really were known for getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. What was something that all those guys had in common when they were playing? They had other players on the line, or at least there with them, to be able to take away a lot of that pressure themselves. When he had Trey Flowers, he also had Darius Philon and Dietrich Wise on that line. When you had a guy like Drew Sanders, he had Landon Jackson that was able to provide some of that pressure. You throw in the case of a Jake Beckett. He's someone that had a tank right, had a guy like also a freshman Trey Flowers and some of that, and D.D. Jones. My point is that if you can't just look at one D lineman, see their sack total and be like, oh, well, this guy didn't do that much or whatever. It's like a lot of these guys and these high level guys, they're really great players. But what makes them even better is when there's other great players next to them that can provide a lot of the pressure off of them to help them get to the quarterback a lot easier. They have a great linebacker behind them that's able to stop stuff. Like it's all an encompassing thing. So I don't know. It's like, yes, yeah, you could get an Ndamukong Suh who's just a one-man wrecking crew, but those things are few and far between. Having a guy like a Landon Jackson or whatever, that could really be helpful if you had another player of that caliber alongside of him. But when you just have a bunch of guys that are kind of average, below average at getting to the quarterback and sacks, that's not going to help anybody. That's not going to open up anybody. You're just hopeful that it's going to combine and get to something. And I just don't see that being the case.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. And Arkansas did some good work in the spring transfer period last year. Got some linebacker help, some secondary help. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's something they really be able to do on the defensive line. Starting caliber SEC defensive linemen don't typically pop up post spring ball. This is the time to do that work. So we'll see. I mean, hey, we've given Deke Adams a lot of credit for his recruiting and then being just, I think, probably better than advertised as a defensive line coach so far at Arkansas. He's going to have a chance to earn that paycheck because it's going to be about a lot of development and scheme technique to really get these guys to max out if they're going to come anywhere close to matching their production from last year, which let's be honest, for a majority of the season, we were going, is this defensive? Like, are these guys ever going to be able to get to the quarterback? And then Landon Jackson finally started doing it, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, I didn't think D-line was necessarily a strength for Arkansas this past year, to your point, Curtis. And I think they got worse in that room. I don't know how else to say, at least on paper. You know, obviously development is going to matter a lot, but I think if you're making a case, it's got to come from the Charlie Collins and the Quincy Rhodes of the world. And Kavion Henderson's a guy you can throw in here, but I think Arkansas didn't even play him in the bowl game, which
was so if he hurt him, or like that was weird.
He I don't know if he was hurt, but again, he also wasn't really like Charlie Collins. At least played sparingly throughout the year and was kind of in the rotation. I don't know if Kavion was necessarily in that same ilk. So look, maybe all these guys turn into stars, but it's going to take, to your point, like Deke Adams is going to have to really develop that room, and you're going to have to get a bunch of guys to outperform what they've done in their career so far, which, you know, can happen, but I think it's a tough place to be. Who would have thought that the Liberty Bowl would be so consequential to the Razorbacks? You have Desmond James has a good game and he dips. Anton Juncaj gets his first sack and he's like, all right, I'm out now. Who would have thought that it would turn out to be a negative for Arkansas?
Yeah, people are gonna have to stop playing in the bowl game. Just start because the coaches are gonna be, we don't want to play in the bowl game because we don't want any of our players to look good and then leave. We're just gonna bypass it. I mean, that's how people. I guarantee you, somebody's gonna write an article, or they're gonna be talking about it on some sort of like SEC show about it. But let's just hope that's not